Hi everybody, we're back. Now we're going to define our second flower with our shadows. And I noticed that there is quite a bit of shadow on this flower. I want to make sure I don't lose the white of my flower. That is always a danger when we see how much white is in, or gray or blue is in a picture. We get carried away and we lose our whites. Little windows like this of white are so very important. What I'm going to concentrate on is putting the blue shadow in behind some of these petals, like in here, because they're almost pure white, except for a tiny little line that defines petals. Wherever I have a pencil, that is a good place to put a little contour line to show that the flower is moving in a flowing direction. Now I'm really concentrating on leaving lots of white. Here's one of the pencil marks that I mean, right here. I'm going to put a slight gray and smudge that over so that I don't have a bunch of unnecessarily dark lines. I want some lines and then I want some shading. And the shadows that I have definite lines on are the ones that I'm cleaning up the pencil. In here I've got some pencil, so I want to go around and make this a shadow underneath there. Here's a real mess, can't tell what it is at all, and so I can rely on my reference to see what's happening here and create shadows to form the shape of the petal. So then I have some definition that I didn't have a minute ago. I'm going to change my gray to slightly rose as we come around here. There's pencil, pencil, pencil all the way through there. So I'm going to put paint on the pencil mark, and then I'm going to smudge that so that I have soft mauve shadows in there. Just defining the edges of my petals with a soft paint and drag. Off, just moving in through, creating petal shapes, blending the edges. One petal at a time to create some interesting cast shadows are the hard edges. The less definite shadows are blurry. So look at your picture and see, do you see soft or do you see hard? I want to go through there and think about what needs to stay pure white and what needs to have a definite mark. I don't like the end of this one, so I'm just going to bring that down into my little triangle. And then those lines make sense that they are connected to that. So there is our flower. The next thing we should deal with is our background. And then we'll come back and we'll do the leaves. So our background isn't quite dark enough. So I'm going to take a hint from this paper, and I see that it is kind of a green, dark green. So we've got phthalo blue and the yellow, which made our green. And I'm going to go in here and pop some dark green in here to see if that's working for our color definition. I have some dark violet here, and I'm going to go through here and add some violet into this area so that it really pops. This really is popping here. Bring it down in between your petals, just slightly, so that you get a nice color definition at the edge of the petals. I don't like this shape. I can change the shape of a petal by using the background color. Now, right here is an issue. I don't want to change the whole background. I just want to darken it in this close, tight area for the flower. So I'm going to take my shader and I'm going to just use a damp brush to feather that edge so that I'm keeping my darks here and my lights here. Now, the top of this painting, to me, needs to be slightly darker. The flower isn't popping as much as I want it to. And I've got a gray blue in there. Let's take our color that we made with gray blue, which was blue and a little orange. Just temper that a bit, and I'm going to keep it quite on the blue side, and I'm going to move my paper around so that I can get in here and go in between the flowers, and I'm using a nice wide brush so that I can carve into this flower, and you can see that it's really popping a lot more than it is here. So I'm going to quickly, with the same brush load, go in here and just keep all the way to the end, really popping that white flower. Watercolors dry pale sometimes, and mine did quite a bit. Now I have this hard edge. What do I want to do with that? That's when I rinse my brush, dry it, and then just drag that pale diluted water off to the edge. Now, I can go back in here and I can darken this if I want, but that's going to eliminate all the work that I did before, and I want some light in there. I'm just going to leave that way, but I'm going to go back in here while this is damp. And remember, I just said that watercolors fade, so I have to paint them a little bit darker than what it looks wet, because when it's dry it's going to fade out on me. So take some of your color, drop it into damp paper, and it will darken that without a bunch of hard lines. Now that's really popping. Much, much nicer. I really like what happens on the other part of the painting here, so I'm going to leave that the way it is. Now let's address our leaves. You notice that there's a lot of light on some of these leaves, so that means we need water on our leaves, and then blue and a lot of yellow, so that it's very light. And I put water on here so that this color is diluted and is going to look very pale when it dries. And now the yellow is really popping in other places. Okay, so we're going to leave that just to dry a bit. Finish these last couple. Put your yellow on, take some water, drag it around. If it's not moving, you got to get it to move because you want this damp. And I've left some whites on purpose. So the side away from the light, which is on this side, on this other side, I'm going to start dropping in some of the green, which I mixed with blue and yellow. I'm going to start down here at the bottom where it's going out of the picture plane, and I want to darken this corner. And you can see that I've got just blurry color. Don't need any definite edges on the petals yet. Now this might be a good opportunity to pop back with our light color. So I'm popping back and forth between the light and the dark, watching what's happening and trying not to eliminate my white at the tips. Now, I need to do the same thing here underneath this petal because it would be casting a shadow on this stem. If you curve that, it'll make a nice stem. So underneath the petal, and then come down with a curved mark. And that will tell you that that is round because it comes up here from this other stem. Stem continues in behind the flower and comes out this other side. And I see that I need to darken this background. I've painted a big white petal there, but there really isn't one that I want there. I just want to keep the stem peeking through here and the pale shadow in the background. Now, what am I going to do here? It looks quite light, but pale green. So I'm going to make my green slightly darker and do the outside edge, leaving a lot of white. I'm going to do that throughout so that these don't look like yellow leaves, but they look slightly green. Now I have a lot of brown that splashed onto my petal, and when I dragged my brush through it, it turned brown. That is a good thing. Here the masking fluid didn't quite take and it's all broken up. Leave that. That adds interest to your painting. This is like a random shadow that's underneath that petal. Really going to create a nice dark edge. So there we have our first wash of yellow and green with some whites. I'm going to make my green a lot darker for detail work. So we want a nice deep green. And where is a good place for that? I'm going to start here underneath the petal, underneath these petals. Oh my goodness, time is flying. And a little bit defining these petals here. Darkening the bottom edges. Dragging it right off the paper. Going back in, softening some edges. Always the same thing, soft edges, hard edges. What you want defined as a sharp mark will describe the edge of something. I want this to look like it's turning. I put a shadow underneath that mark. Smudge the other side so it disappears. I want this bottom here to disappear, but I don't want this to disappear, so that's when you smudge that. And I have my leaves and my background done. It could use just a little bit of tweaking, going back in here with some darks. Just in a couple of these areas where I can make this little area as dark as my background, and it punches and makes this more a definite shape. So there's your daisy. I hope you enjoyed the series. We're up to 14 minutes already, so I think we will go now and we'll start something new in another series. Happy painting, and give me a call, 306-717-3083 if you have any questions. Bye for now.